Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders with Marketing Huddle, and today we have with us Derek Lundsten, who is the CEO of Scrimmage. Derek, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Mike. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Hey, doing really good. Hey, I think I killed your last name. It's Lundsten, correct?
That is correct. I didn't want to.
Hey, good. I always get mine killed, and it stands out. So I like to correct myself when I'm wrong. Hey, so welcome, and give us a little bit of background of yourself and what led you to the entrepreneurial journey, and then what is a scrimmage? Because I love the potential connection in just how you tie in, scrimmage or team building or games and things like that. So I'm excited to hear about your company.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've just been working as an entrepreneur now for over 5 years, working with various companies, Scrimmage being one of them, and really just kind of started off and working for various entrepreneurs over the course of my career in the spaces of software, in the spaces of training and education, and that kind of just led me down this path to where I am now. And essentially, as you kind of pointed out, the nice part about Scrimmage is it brings back fond memories of playing sports and playing games and practicing and getting better at something. And at the same time, that's something I think that we can bring to the corporate education space. And I think that that's resonant with a lot of people. And I think it's also something that is definitely needed, particularly in this new economy where people are looking for micro training and fun and gamification built into those different things. And I think those are things that we all could do in our work. So it works really nicely.
Yeah, I think our mobile society that we're in, literally last night, I was just talking about that with my wife. It's like, have Wi-Fi can go wherever you need, and you can work
Exactly.
and check in. And I mean, it doesn't matter where you are. And, the small screens these days, the tablet, you can do so much with that as it used to be, the wired down desktop. So, What is special about Scrimmage? Because you said, micro, and I love that concept as well. So give us a little bit of a thumbnail of Scrimmage.
Yeah, I think it's all those things. I think mobile learning is something that we've really based the company on first and foremost. Really, the company, we launched it around the time that the iPad came to market as companies were looking for a way to differentiate with their customers. And at the same time, when they did that, they also recognized that there was a need or opportunity to provide more personalized education. And I think, as you astutely pointed out, the fact that we carry, our phones, our tablets with us wherever we go, you can really reach someone with personalized, relevant content, wherever they are. We actually say, mobile learning anytime, everywhere. That's our slogan. And so it really allows people, similar to how we check social media, how we check our email, how we do our work, it allows you to really incorporate learning and intentional learning into your daily routine, and even incorporating, the relationship between companies and employees, the opportunity to both seek out and be distributed content on a daily basis or ongoing basis, and to do it quickly, right? So I can watch a video on a topic, or I can take a quiz, or I can play a game. That kind of all ties up to what I'm doing to learn from my job in particular. But the nice part about what we're building, while we focused it heavily in the corporate education space, I mean, there's nice parallels, and we're actually having conversations now about how do we expand it into more traditional educational settings, higher ed, emerging market schools, things like that. So it's really, really fun and exciting. And even, I think how you and I got connected originally, Mike, was with one of my partners in 21 Mill, which we're kind of leveraging the same capabilities to provide training and education for the millennials and for the next generation workforces and the employees therein, and giving lessons that will help them be successful in the corporate environment and also be successful potentially as entrepreneurs. And these are all things that, if you couldn't tell, I'm very passionate about. So it's really cool.
Yeah, and I want to tie in the millennial training in a second, but I want to clarify, because something came to mind when you were describing that, and I love mobile learning, I love short burst and, gamification quiz, but it makes me wonder, what about how engaged do you need to be for these learning, snippets? Meaning, if you're out and about in mobile, which is your claim to fame and a big benefit, well,
Sure.
you might be distracted. So if you have a company that says, hey, we want to put this learning series or module on our, on our platform here, and we want our people to take advantage of it, what if it really is something, deeper to where, their people might be out and about and click on something and not really engage with it and get all the learning they need? So what are you doing to make sure that it really is, being delivered, in a solid way?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think there's a couple of different parts to that. I think one is, if you look at the historical use of learning technology within corporations, right? They had these large learning management systems that were really only accessible via computer, right?
Yep.
And oftentimes you'd have 2 hours, I'm sure you went through these, 1 hour, 2 hour learning courses where you sit down and go screen by screen by screen. And A, they were painful, and B, no one really liked to do it. And unless it was compliance driven, people really would not seek out education, or unless it was mandatory, they wouldn't really seek that out, right? So what we've sought to do, and there's all kinds of statistics from different organizations speaking about the lack of engagement or the lack of productivity in the workforce and what that means to companies' top and bottom line, right? So what we're solving for, first and foremost, is giving people the accessibility 24 hours that they want to, right? I mean, some people, they can find the time when they have the time to watch videos or to seek out content when they have it. I mean, I think just think about as you watch YouTube or you look on things on Google, I'd say generally speaking, when you do that, or at least when I do that, I have a specific intention and objective for why I'm watching that video or why I'm watching or why I'm searching for something, right? So if you can allocate a minute or two, I would say that the engagement, A, because you're seeking it out of your own, is high, and B, the retention of that is probably high as well because you've made the specific goal to seek it out. And I think that's the big difference between what we're doing and what traditionally companies have done.
Yeah, that is a pretty big deal in marketing. It reminds me of push or pull marketing.
Exactly.
If you push, that's screaming buy, coupon, deadline. But if you pull, you're educating someone, and you're like, ooh, I need to learn more about that, and that's more pull marketing where they're going to be a little bit more engaged. So yeah, that's a really good point. Where if you are demanding your people take this training class, they're bored and it's long and they're clicking through and multitasking. But if they're seeking it out, they're going to be a little bit more engaged, and it's typically probably not going to be 1 to 2 hours.
That's exactly right, Mike. And what we're doing is kind of blending both of those, right? So we're leveraging push notifications and pushing out of content where it's really relevant to bring people in for, maybe there's an incentive for doing this particular learning, or maybe there's a relevancy on the product that's being released, or whatever it might be. So we will leverage some of those capabilities, but at the same time, we're making more on-demand, more library type of content available for people to use. So I'll give you an example. Say I'm calling on a customer, and I'm in the meeting, and I forget the product details I need. I can go down to my iPad, I can pull up this video, I can look at or the document, I can take a quick look at it, and I can answer that question. Right? So there's actually, we're not only are we providing better learning tools, but we're actually providing tools that people can use right in the meetings themselves. Right? We can actually elevate the business. And I think that if you look historically, that's something that learning has always sought to do within organizations, or training has sought to do, but now we're really partnering up. And I think that with what we're doing, especially with Scrimmage, in terms of the amount of data that we're measuring and how we're capturing that and what we're doing around tracking and utilization, then you're getting to the point where we can start to make real business cases and business decisions to executive teams, which I think has been the holy grail in some ways for learning and development for the better part of 20 years. And I think we're just now on the verge of companies like Scrimmage and others being able to provide that. And I think that that's a huge differentiator, kind of in the mobile learning market and just around the personalization market.
Yeah, you mentioned 21 Mil, which is your, kind of passion program for training millennials and a training platform for them to teach them how to be better people and better employees and better contributors. Do you find with your work with millennials that they are more engaged with this type of learning and training than maybe their counterparts that are older? Or is it starting to have, the boomers and the Gen Xers get a little bit more used to this to where it's like, okay, we know it's here, we got to deal with it. So how do millennials, how are they consuming this as compared to other generational,
segments? That's a part question, so let me answer both of those. So I think absolutely millennial appetite for how they consume content. Speaking of experience, I mean, we prefer to look at videos. We like to look at short bursts. We like to view content quickly and relevant to whatever it is that we're doing, right? And I think if you look at, to your point, marketing, content marketing, personalized marketing, everything is going in that direction, right? So I think that's natural. I think that as a result of the demand from millennials and others in the market, and I don't think it's a millennial-only thing. I think boomers and Gen X and others are moving that direction too. No one wants to be bombarded for 2 hours. Everyone recognizes the value of time being a non-refundable currency, right? So people want to maximize their time and to make it useful. So I think that we're just tapping into something that everyone recognizes. And so that's the first piece. And I think why we built the content for this is because of that exact issue, is that there's these biases or these stereotypes between the new generations in the workforce, Generation Y, Millennials, and Gen Z, versus the more established Boomers and Gen X, and the perception of entitlement and communication styles and expectations from work and all those different things. And I speak and write a lot about the fact that there's so much we can learn from each other, and there's more commonalities than there are differences, and that we're just giving a vehicle and a platform to bring that to light. And I think that it's a really, really important time in terms of the transition that's taking place as more and more of the boomers are moving into semi-retirement. We need to still take the wisdom that they've developed and incorporate that into the new approaches to work and the new expectations for work that are available to us. And I think that's what's happening, and it's a really, really cool cultural phenomenon, knowledge phenomenon, employment phenomenon, and I think we're just seeing the beginning of this, quite frankly. So.
Yep, I couldn't agree more, and I love the concept of gamification for learning and taking learning deeper. And so I want to talk about that, but I want to lead into that question with this. If I am a company hearing this and I go, hey, this is really good because it's a neat platform and it's gauging in short bursts, I've got a bunch of old archaic content, training content on our intranet right now. How do I get it out of there, but in a better format? And when I think about gamification and quizzes and whatnot to train my people and motivate my people, sounds great, but I don't know how to convert. So do you guys also give guidance on, well, hey, here's what you have now, here's how we can get it into a better format, and here's what you should consider, and kind of like a done with you kind of a help?
Sure. Yeah, we do, and I think that's a great point that you raise, is that there's many formats to gamification, and I think this is an area where, speaking of corporate, we're just starting to get real adoption from the space. I think over the last few years, it's been somewhat of a polarizing term in the corporate environment because work versus games seems somewhat counterintuitive, but I would argue that they're very much in line, and gamification used effectively can drive serious results when it comes to engagement, knowledge retention, diversity of format, different learning styles, incentivization, fun, all these different things. And if you ever want to read a book or a bunch of books, there's a gentleman who I have great respect for. Everyone knows him. I would argue he's the godfather of gamification. His name's Carl Kopp, K-A-P-P. And he speaks a lot about the different formats of gamification and the different modalities of gamification. And we at Scrimmage leverage a bunch of those, and then I think there's even room to grow. And I think that, I can't even go through the different levels of them. They're all identified by him in his book, but essentially, there's the concept of leaderboards, there's the concept of in-game, there's the concept of rewards and recognition, there's the simulated type of games, there's role-play type of games, and I think there's room for all these types of things. And I think that there's even a gamification kind of maturity model, and I think we're even going to be on the verge of more of this when we get into now, VR and AR and incorporating that into enterprise training. So it's a really exciting time, Mike, for what we're doing within adult learning, but just learning in general. Education as a system is about to evolve, in my opinion. I hope to play an active role in that.
I think that it's kind of like, it makes me think of this. Yesterday I saw this article and I posted it on Facebook because I'd seen it on someone else's feed, and it was like, that's really interesting, which is to gain people's attention and engagement, use ugly fonts. like Comic Sans.
Right.
And they cited a study in somewhere, the UK or whatever, where this teacher handed half the class their, study notes for this upcoming exam in Times New Roman and the other half in Comic Sans, and the half that got Comic Sans did better on the test, and they attributed it to the fact that it wasn't typical, that it caught their attention, they had to concentrate a little harder to read it because it wasn't your eyes glazing over the Times New Roman, and you kind of feel like, yeah, I've seen this before. And so it kind of makes me think the same thing as with gamification, where it's like, ooh, wait a minute, this compliance training module here is normally boring, but this is pretty cool. I'm doing this game thing. So is that an outcome that you guys are seeing?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that was one of the early topics where people were willing to try gamification was in compliance, right? Because it is such it's such a critical part of business, but such a dreaded part, right? If you want to call it that by many people, that there has to be a way to spice it up and make it more relevant. And I think people are, around videos and games, and that's just a hot area for doing innovative things around compliance. But yeah, I think it's evolving. I just think that even if people's willingness to try it, experiment with it, adopt it for different forms in the organization is growing. Like I mentioned Carl before, I mean, if you asked him 15 years ago when he started really advocating for this to now, I mean, it's literally taken that long for this concept to really start resonating on a mainstream level within corporate America. And I think part of it is because of the millennial generation and the fact that so many of us were gamers growing up, and the fact that games are still a big part of what we do. I don't personally play a lot of video games, but our generation, I think, is very big on gaming. And I think that just entertainment, the idea of entertainment is a very high priority. And I think that kind of comes through when you look at social, when you look at just all the different things that are happening. So, and that's all.
Yeah, I think so. And like you've said a couple times, this is just the cusp and the beginning of where it is going. And once that kind of critical mass hits, it's just going to be, unbelievable when people start adopting and going, I need this. So what's the best way that someone hearing this and going, I wonder how this could benefit my organization, what's the best way that they can learn more about you and your service?
Well, absolutely. So, I mean, first off, go to our website. It's www.wescrimmage.com. I'm also on all the different social media channels as Derek Lundsten. You're welcome to reach out to me personally, connect with me. My email is derek@wescrimmage.com. So, I mean, you're happy to connect there. Those would be the first thing I'd recommend. Our team would love to educate on what we see as the opportunity. We'd love to come in and meet with these different companies and talk about what's happening within the space of mobile learning and engagement and around gamification. And as I mentioned, the idea of upskilling the next generation workforce and changing what we consider the expectations of work are all really things that I'm passionate about. So we would love to talk with anyone on this topic.
Neat. Well, thank you, Derek. It was wonderful getting to know you. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Mike, thank you for your time and really appreciate all your questions as well.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.